As I said on Monday, good riddance to Governor Walz, but he cannot escape accountability for the estimated $9 billion in fraud. How did this happen? And where the hell has the Twin Cities media been? Our Minnesota Republican colleagues have demanded answers and accountability for years, but have seen nothing from Walz, his administration, our Democrat colleagues like Tina Smith, Amy Klobuchar, Ilhan Omar, and Angie Craig, or the worthless Star Tribune. Thank God for President Donald J. Trump for finally bringing attention to this issue. Based on what you've learned, Representative, over the last several years, do you have any doubt that Governor Tim Walz knew about this fraud as it was occurring?
He absolutely knew that it was occurring.
Chair now recognizes Majority Whip from Minnesota, Mr. Emmer.
Thank you, Chairman Comer, for holding this important hearing. As I said on Monday, good riddance to Governor Walz, but he cannot escape accountability for the estimated $9 billion in fraud. How did this happen? And where the hell has the Twin Cities media been? The Star Tribune is complicit. They have had this story for years, if you just heard, and they've refused to report anything on it. In fact, they continue to try and cover up. Our Minnesota Republican colleagues have demanded answers and accountability for years, but have seen nothing from Walz, his administration, our Democrat colleagues like Tina Smith, Amy Klobuchar, Ilhan Omar, and Angie Craig, or the worthless Star Tribune. Thank God for President Donald J. Trump for finally bringing attention to this issue. Representative Rarick, I'm going to begin with you. You've been working on this issue for years. You've spoken to the whistleblowers personally. Is that correct?
That is correct.
You have an understanding that 1,000 whistleblowers running an account on X have come forward to expose fraud in Minnesota state agencies, and they have been entirely ignored by Tim Walz and have even been retaliated against. Is that accurate?
That is correct. Even this morning, I got another message.
Well, in your experience, are their claims credible or are they politically motivated against Walz?
They're completely credible, not politically motivated.
In fact, many of these are Walz administration employees, correct?
They are actually Democrats as well.
Can you quickly give us one example of the retaliation these folks have been facing?
Yes, I can. In my opening statement, I mentioned that the most severe ones was that they would be fired with cause, so they couldn't have unemployment insurance, that they would be blacklisted from all state agencies, and I would bet that it's also Hennepin County and Ramsey County, as you know, those are Democrat-run, and much, much more.
Based on what you've learned, Representative, over the last several years, do you have any doubt that Governor Tim Walz knew about this fraud as it was occurring?
He absolutely knew that it was occurring.
Thank you. The Housing Stability Services Program was estimated to cost about $2.6 million per year, but before it was shut down last October, it was on track to run about $122 million in 2025. In fact, I think they sucked $161 million out of it from the point it started in 2020 until it was finally shut down. Isn't that correct?
That is correct, and Joe Thompson believes that 90% of that was fraud.
Yeah. The Quality Leering Center, as uncovered by Nick Shirley, received almost $10 million in funding. Is that accurate?
I believe it is.
There are more than 80 autism centers in Minnesota under investigation. Is that true?
I believe it is, yes.
It's clear that someone is criminally complicit. You can't just let this amount of money get out of your administration over a period of 7 years without knowing. There was a hearing in the state regarding the fraudulent housing stabilization program, but before that hearing, Governor Walz fired the official who was slated to testify so that they could not testify and expose what was happening under Governor Walz's watch. Has Governor Walz or Attorney General Ellison fired anyone else to your knowledge, Representative?
Not to my knowledge, and that was Eric Rumdahl, and his administration believes that he was not fired, but I say he was fired because it was too convenient.
Great. Representative Hudson, is it true that 90% of the individuals charged, regardless of what your colleague on the panel just said with his facts and figures, 90% of the individuals charged or indicted with the $250 million Feeding Our Future COVID fraud are of Somali descent?
I believe that to be correct.
Are you aware that in a 2021 video, Mr. Ellison promised that he would obstruct his own agencies in their investigation of Somali fraud?
I am very much aware of that.
It's no wonder that criminals in the Somali community felt they were free to steal taxpayer dollars. I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Marion. Do you have any doubt that Tim Walz knew about this fraud as it was occurring?
None whatsoever.
Walz and Ellison were protecting fraudsters instead of investigating them, and it was purposeful. And it's no coincidence that this is occurring largely in the Somali community. Walz made a sanctuary state, Minnesota, a sanctuary state. He gave free health care, free college, and free licenses to illegals. And Walz looked the other way when Somali immigrants were stealing. Representative Robbins, do you have any doubt that Tim Walz knew about this fraud as it was occurring?
None whatsoever.
So all three of you have no doubt in your minds that Tim Walz knew about the $9 billion of fraud during his tenure as governor and did nothing about it. It looks like my time is about to expire, and I do want to say to all of you, on behalf of Minnesota, thank you for being here, and justice will be served. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Whip. Chair now recognizes Ms. Norton from Washington, D.C.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Federal assistance programs are vital for keeping working families afloat and children healthy. Nearly 25% of adults and nearly 50% of children rely on federal assistance, including child care funding, Medicaid, and Children's Health Insurance Program, and the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. Fraudsters targeting government programs have a uniquely harmful impact on Americans. They deprive taxpayers of efficient use of their funds, deprive intended recipients and sometimes the most vulnerable groups in our society of the services and assistance they are eligible for, and they reduce the public trust in government. But answers to fraud is not to freeze critical safety net programs and cause more suffering for Americans who are already struggling to afford everyday expenses. I have worked with my colleagues on the Government Operations Subcommittee on ways that federal agencies can identify and prevent fraud before payments are made. My Oversight Committee Democrat colleagues and I are also proud co-sponsors of Congressional Men's Taxpayer Funds Oversight Accountability Act. This legislation would strengthen the ability of federal agencies to reliably track federal funds, enabling more efficient analysis to identify and stop fraudsters. We can continue to reduce fraud and protect funding from bad actors by empowering oversight bodies like Inspectors General and the Government Accountability Office, which are often best equipped to investigate red flags and sound the alarm when there are problems to address. Applying additional safeguards requires a balanced approach that does not pull the rug out from under people, including children, who rely on help these programs provide. Congress must not allow partisan actors to seize on the misdeeds of a few in order to gut the vital programs that provide access to federal health care and special health education services, keep American children fed, and keep American parents to work with the knowledge that their children are safe. And I yield back.